Every GTA character's explained video skips someone, or gets a timeline wrong, and the comments never let it go. So here's the version built to survive that. 15 protagonists across nearly 30 years of Grand Theft Auto, every fact checked against canon, told in the order they actually shaped the series. No filler, no guesses about who did what, just why each one changed what a GTA lead could be, and which one still gets argued about hardest today. Claude arrived in Liberty City in 2001 with no voice, no name anyone remembers him giving, and a girlfriend named Catalina, who shot him in the chest during a bank job and left him for dead. That betrayal is the entire plot of Grand Theft Auto 3. Claude spends the game climbing through the Mafia, the Yakuza, and the Colombian cartel for one reason: revenge on the woman who used him and walked away richer. He never speaks a single line of dialogue, not because Rockstar couldn't afford voice acting, but because a silent lead let players project themselves directly into the chaos, without a personality getting in the way. It worked. GTA 3 became the blueprint for open-world crime games, selling millions and forcing every competitor to react to it. Claude quietly resurfaces 2 years later in San Andreas, still silent, now working muscle for Catalina's new boyfriend, in one of the series' first deliberate continuity nods. He shows up again in Vice City Stories 2, briefly, tying 3 separate games into one shared timeline before Rockstar had even settled on doing that on purpose. Claude was also the last GTA lead the studio ever tried this with. Every protagonist after him got a voice, a face, and a name people actually shout in comment sections, because Rockstar had proven a silent avatar could carry one groundbreaking game, but not an entire franchise built on emotional stakes. Tommy Vercetti walked out of a 15-year prison sentence in 1986 and straight into a drug deal that Rockstar turned into an ambush. His entire crew is gunned down within the first act of Vice City, and Tommy is left holding nothing but a debt to Sonny Forelli back in Liberty City, and a tropical city full of people who assume a fresh-out ex-con is easy pickings. That assumption is the whole engine of the game. Tommy doesn't set out to build an empire, he just wants his stolen money and product back. But every attempt to fix things the honest way pulls him deeper into founding one anyway. By the end, he owns the Vercetti estate, controls the drug trade, the printing presses, and half the city's criminal rackets, and has become exactly the untouchable boss Sonny Forelli was terrified of creating in the first place. Vice City gave the series its first protagonist with real dialogue, a genuine sense of humor, and a voice actor, Ray Liotta, who brought a mainstream Hollywood weight the earlier games never had. Tommy's rise from disposable hitman to kingpin set the template every rags-to-riches GTA story has copied since, and his refusal to ever go back to Liberty City or bow to Sonny again is the reason Vice City remains the only 3D-era game where the protagonist ends the story with more power than the people who tried to use him. Then Rockstar went back to street level, and Carl C.J. Johnson became the protagonist fans still argue is the series' best. Born in 1968 in the Johnson family home on Grove Street, CJ leaves Los Santos in 1987 after his younger brother Brian is murdered, and only comes back 5 years later, in 1992, because his mother Beverly is gunned down in a drive-by right outside that same house. That's not a job offer pulling him in, that's a funeral. Within his first hour back, corrupt CRH officer Frank Tenpenny frames him for the murder of a police officer, forcing CJ into missions he never asked for, while his own older brother Sweet blames him for abandoning Grove Street when it needed him most. San Andreas builds its entire structure around CJ, clawing back a gang that collapsed in his absence, block by block, while childhood friends turn out to be the reason it collapsed at all. Ryder is skimming money from his own crew, and the group's second-in-command, Big Smoke, is secretly working for the rival Ballas and the very cops framing CJ. Even the game's version of the LAPD Rampart scandal follows CJ home. Tenpenny isn't a one-off villain, he's a running presence across the entire story, always one step ahead, always able to turn CJ's own arrests into leverage. By the time CJ finally gets to choose Tenpenny's fate during the Los Santos riots, it doesn't feel like a boss fight. It feels like 5 years of accumulated resentment finally getting an outlet. Few protagonists in the series have had betrayal built that close to home, which is exactly why CJ's arc, voiced by young Melee, still hits harder than almost anything Rockstar wrote afterward. Niko Bellic came from a war most players never had to think about. Born in 1978 in a small village in the former Yugoslavia, Niko served through the Yugoslav wars, watched his own squad get ambushed after someone inside sold their position to the enemy, and walked away as one of only 3 survivors. Grand Theft Auto 4 opens with his cousin Roman's letters, promising fast cars, easy women, and American wealth waiting in Liberty City. None of it is true. Roman is broke, hiding from loan sharks, and running a failing taxi company. And Niko's real reason for crossing the Atlantic isn't the American dream at all. It's tracking down the man who betrayed his unit during the war. Rockstar built Niko as the series' first non-American lead, voiced by Michael Hollick, and it shows in how little joy he takes from the crime piling up around him. He's coerced into work for the Russian mafia under Mikhail Faustin, the Italian Pegorino family, and eventually a federal intelligence agency that blackmails him into protecting the country against his will. Through all of it, Niko keeps repeating the same line. There's no such thing as a new beginning. Even the game's ending refuses to reward him cleanly. Whichever path players choose, revenge on the man who betrayed his unit, or the deal that lets Niko walk away richer, someone Niko loves still ends up dead. Because Rockstar wanted the first truly grounded GTA lead to prove that money and vengeance were never actually the same fix. For a franchise built on power fantasies, that's as close to a thesis statement as Rockstar has ever put in a protagonist's mouth. Johnny Klebitz never got Niko's spotlight, but he got something rarer in this series. A protagonist who was already established with history and standing before his story even begins. As vice president of the Lost Motorcycle Club, Johnny spends The Lost and Damned holding a fractured biker gang together while his president, Billy Grimshaw, gets out of rehab and immediately torches every fragile piece Johnny spent months building. Johnny doesn't want a war with the rival Angels of Death. He wants his club to survive its own leadership. And Rockstar used him to show a side of Liberty City the wealthier protagonists never touched. Loyalty crumbling from the inside a brotherhood nobody in it chose to walk away from. His ending is brutal precisely because it isn't cinematic. Johnny is murdered off-screen years later, revealed in a single line of dialogue in Grand Theft Auto V, killed by Trevor Phillips over a woman, closing out a character who never got the send-off his own game had spent an entire story building him toward. Luis Fernando Lopez had the opposite problem. Rockstar handed him money, status, and a share in a nightclub empire before the Ballad of Gay Tony even opens, which makes him one of the strangest protagonists in the franchise. Someone who already had everything the earlier leads were desperate to claw their way toward. Luis works as security and muscle for nightclub owner Tony Prince, torn between the legitimate high life Tony represents on the surface and the diamond heists and drug deals that keep threatening to collapse it underneath. What makes Luis stand out is loyalty without illusions. He knows Tony is self-destructing under gambling debt and cocaine. He knows the diamond heist with Rushkovsky's men is a mistake before it even starts, and he does it anyway. Because in this series, walking away from family chosen or blood was never really on the table. Luis closed out the Liberty City era on a rare note for GTA, a protagonist who survives mostly intact because he never stopped protecting the people around him instead of himself. Tony Cipriani got the strangest promotion in series history. From a background joke in GTA 3, an oversized mobster who killed his own mother's boyfriends out of jealousy, into the full protagonist of Liberty City Stories, set years earlier. Working for the Leone crime family under Don Salvatore Leone, Tony claws his way from cleaning up bodies for the family to running actual territory, all while the Sicilian mob's old world code keeps colliding with a city that's already moved past it. He spends much of the story protecting Salvatore's increasingly unstable grip on power, even as internal betrayals from the Leone family's own ranks make that loyalty look more and more like a losing bet. He's not flashy and he's not funny like Tommy. He's a company man trying to keep a dying institution alive, which is exactly why longtime fans single him out as the most underrated lead Rockstar has written. Victor Vance's story exists because Rockstar wanted to show what Vice City looked like 2 years before Tommy Vercetti ever arrived. A soldier discharged from the army after helping his sick brother, Lance. Vic gets pulled into drug running and racketeering purely to keep his family from starving. And Vice City Stories turns that survival instinct into an entire criminal empire, almost by accident. One built alongside crooked Army Colonel Martinez and a young, still unremarkable Lance. Vic never wanted the throne Tommy would later inherit. He just wanted rent money and a way to keep his brother out of trouble. And that smaller, more human motive is what separates him from almost every other protagonist on this list. Then, there's Huang Li, the heir to a triad fortune who gets robbed of his father's prized sword within minutes of landing in Liberty City in Chinatown Wars. Everything that follows, every double cross between rival triad factions, every attempt to reclaim his family's honor, traces back to that one theft, orchestrated by his own uncle. Huang starts the story as the softest, least battle-tested character on this entire list. Someone raised on money rather than violence, and ends up running the very organization that tried to use his inheritance against him. Then, Los Santos returned, and instead of one protagonist, Rockstar gave players 3, built to collide on purpose. Michael DeSanta used to be Michael Townley, a bank robber who faked his own death in a botched heist and bought a new identity through a corrupt federal agent, Dave Norton. Grand Theft Auto V opens on the version of Michael who supposedly won, a mansion in Rockford Hills, a family that resents him, and a therapist he lies to every session. Rockstar built Michael, voiced by Ned Luke, as the answer to a question the series had never asked before. What happens to a criminal after the credits usually roll on his heist? The answer is he gets bored, gets reckless, and gets pulled straight back into the life he supposedly escaped the moment his old partner, Trevor Phillips, discovers he's still alive. Michael's arc only resolves once he stops running from the people he faked his death to protect in the first place, which is exactly the trap witness protection was always going to be. Franklin Clinton is the newest kind of GTA lead, someone still deciding who he wants to become instead of running from who he already was. Raised by his grandmother after his mother died of an overdose, and his father left before he was born, Franklin spends the opening of GTA 5 repossessing cars for a predatory dealership, smart enough to see the ceiling on that life and ambitious enough to hate it. When a routine repossession puts him face to face with Michael Franklin, voiced by Sean Fontino, gets pulled toward a version of crime with actual money behind it, torn between his loyal but reckless best friend Lamar Davis and the cold, calculating mentorship Michael offers instead. Franklin's ending is the only one in the trilogy built entirely around player choice. The game lets you decide whether he kills Trevor, kills Michael, or saves them both, and that alone shows how much Rockstar trusted this character, still one of the youngest leads in series history, to carry the emotional weight of the whole story, rather than just serve as the newcomer learning the ropes from the other two. Trevor Phillips is what happens when Rockstar stops sanitizing the protagonist entirely. A former stunt pilot and Michael's old partner in crime, Trevor spent 9 years assuming his friend had died in that botched heist, only to discover Michael faked it and built a comfortable new life without ever looking back or reaching out. That betrayal turns Trevor's arrival in Los Santos into something closer to a reckoning than a reunion. Voiced by Stephen Ogg, he's unpredictable, frequently terrifying, and completely without the social filter every previous protagonist relied on to stay likable, which is exactly the point Rockstar was making. Trevor exists to say the things Michael and Franklin can't, and to remind players that underneath every GTA power fantasy is someone willing to burn all of it down over one broken friendship. It's why the game gives players the option to let Franklin kill him. Rockstar wanted Trevor's volatility to feel like a genuine liability to the people around him, not just comic relief. Grand Theft Auto Online quietly rewrote the rules again by handing the protagonist role to the player themselves, fully customizable. Canon to the story, despite never getting a single scripted line that matters to the wider plot. For the first time, the protagonist wasn't a character Rockstar wrote at all. It was whoever logged in. And that decision turned Los Santos into a persistent criminal underworld that's kept expanding for over a decade, longer than every single player lead who came before it combined. Now Rockstar is betting the entire franchise on two protagonists at once, and neither one is the silent type. Jason Duval grew up around crime in the Leonida Keys, joined the army hoping to straighten his life out, and came home to find the only steady work left was running jobs for local drug traffickers. He's pragmatic, not power-hungry, and every trailer released so far frames him as someone looking for an exit rather than an empire. Lucia Caminos gives him one. Raised in Liberty City and trained to fight before she was old enough to understand why, Lucia's story opens exactly where the GTA 5 protagonist's arcs ended, walking out of Leonida Penitentiary with nothing, delivering the line that's already defined her character before the game has even released, that the only way out is to keep going. Rockstar has built their entire relationship on the real Bonnie and Clyde. And for the first time in series history, the protagonist isn't one person chasing an empire alone. It's two people who only fully trust each other, in a state that's given them every to. Lucia is also the first woman ever handed a mainline lead role in this series, after nearly 3 decades of GTA protagonists being written almost exclusively as men, which alone makes this the biggest structural risk Rockstar has taken with a protagonist since the switch to 3 playable leads in GTA 5. 28 years, 12 leads, one pattern worth arguing about. Which protagonist's story hit you hardest? Subscribe for more.